If the grid went dark tonight and winter showed up uninvited, most homes would become refrigerators by morning. You could stack all the firewood you want in the backyard, but here's the ugly truth nobody likes to say out loud. A traditional fireplace wastes so much heat it might as well be a campfire with better marketing. You sit there feeding it log after log, watching flames lick the chimney while your living room barely warms up, and your woodpile shrinks faster than morale in a blackout. Now imagine a heater that flips that equation so hard it feels illegal, one that sips wood instead of devouring it, one that turns smoke into heat instead of poison, and one that keeps radiating warmth long after the fire is dead. That's the Rocket Mass Heater, and once you understand how it works, you'll never look at a normal fireplace the same way again. Here's the first uncomfortable fact. Fire doesn't heat your house. Hot air does, and hot air is lazy. In a conventional fireplace, the flame is open to the room, which feels comforting, but the physics are brutal. Most of the heat rushes straight up the chimney because hot air wants to rise, and it drags your already heated indoor air with it. You're literally pulling warmth out of your house while congratulating yourself for staying warm. A rocket mass heater starts by insulting that entire design philosophy. Instead of letting heat escape, it traps combustion in a sealed burn tunnel where temperatures get so high that the wood gases burn completely. This isn't about bigger flames, it's about cleaner, hotter combustion, the kind that leaves almost nothing behind but heat and a whisper of exhaust. When people say 90% less wood, it sounds like clickbait, but once you see the physics, it's just math. The heart of the system is the burn chamber. And this is where survival science quietly shows its teeth. Wood doesn't actually burn the way most people think it does. First it heats up, then it releases gases, and those gases burn. In a normal fireplace, most of those gases escape unburned, which is why you see smoke and smell creosote. A rocket mass heater forces those gases through an insulated vertical heat riser where temperatures can exceed 1,000 degrees Celsius. At that point, the gases don't have a choice, they combust completely. That roaring sound people describe isn't drama, it's efficiency. You're extracting almost every usable calorie from the fuel before it ever leaves the system. Less smoke, less ash, more heat, and far less wood consumed. That's not eco-idealism. That's thermodynamics doing its job. Now comes the part that feels almost post-apocalyptic in its elegance. Instead of letting that intense heat blast straight outside, the system slows it down. Hot exhaust gases are routed through a long thermal mass, usually cob, brick, stone, or concrete, materials that are fantastic at absorbing and storing heat. Think of it like charging a battery, but the battery is your floor or bench. As the hot gases snake through these channels, they dump their heat into the mass, cooling down before they ever reach the chimney. By the time the exhaust exits, it's often cool enough to touch. That stored heat doesn't vanish when the fire goes out. It leaks back into the room slowly, for hours, sometimes all night, which means you can burn a short, intense fire and stay warm long after the flames are gone. This is where survival insight number 3 sneaks in. And it matters more than comfort. In a collapse scenario, fuel is life. Chopping wood takes calories. Hauling it takes time. Drying it takes planning. A system that cuts your wood needs by even half changes the math of winter survival. A rocket mass heater doesn't need big logs either. Twigs, scrap lumber, split branches, things you'd normally ignore become viable fuel because the combustion chamber is designed for small diameter wood. You're not just burning less, you're expanding what counts as usable fuel. That flexibility is gold when supply chains are a memory, and every resource has to justify its existence. There's another quiet advantage most people don't realize until they've lived with. 1. Safety. Traditional fireplaces and wood stoves accumulate creosote, which is basically chimney napalm waiting for a spark. Because a rocket mass heater burns so hot and so clean, creosote buildup is dramatically reduced. That doesn't mean zero maintenance, but it does mean fewer chimney fires and fewer moments where your survival plan goes up in flames. Literally. Also, because the firebox is enclosed and the draft is controlled, the risk of sparks popping into your living space drops significantly. In a world where emergency services may not be coming, reducing fire risk isn't optional, it's mandatory. Then there's the psychological side, and this is where things get interesting. Humans evolved around hearths, but not the decorative kind. We evolved around efficient communal heat sources that stayed warm through the night. The thermal mass of a rocket heater gives you that deep, bone-level warmth that feels different from hot air blasting your face. It's the kind of heat that soaks into walls, into furniture, into you. When the outside world is unstable, that steady warmth does something to your nervous system. It lowers stress, improves sleep, and keeps morale from collapsing. That may sound soft, but anyone who spent a cold night without heat knows morale is a survival resource. Of course, this isn't magic, and pretending it is would get you hurt. Rocket mass heaters require planning, space, and a willingness to build or modify your home. They're heavy. That thermal mass can weigh thousands of pounds, which means structural support matters. Clearances matter. Venting matters. The reason they aren't code-approved everywhere has more to do with bureaucracy than physics, but ignoring local regulations can still land you in trouble. In a true grid-down scenario, those rules may become irrelevant. But during the transition period, you have to be smart about where and how you build. Survival isn't rebellion for its own sake, it's choosing battles that actually matter. One of the most overlooked insights is how this system changes your daily rhythm. Instead of babysitting a fire all evening, you feed it intensely for an hour or two, then walk away. That frees up time and mental energy, two things people underestimate until they're gone. In a collapse, time isn't just hours on a clock, it's daylight, attention, and calories. A heater that asks less from you while giving more back is the kind of tool civilizations quietly depend on without realizing it. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. When you zoom out, the rocket mass heater feels less like a quirky DIY project and more like a glimpse into how humans might live when efficiency isn't optional anymore. It's a system built on ancient principles, refined with modern understanding of heat flow and combustion, and brutally honest about waste. It doesn't care about aesthetics or nostalgia. It cares about physics. And physics doesn't negotiate. If the future looks colder, darker, and less forgiving, then learning how to heat your space with a fraction of the fuel isn't a hobby, it's a strategy. The shocking part isn't that this heater uses 90% less wood. The shocking part is that we ever accepted anything less.